3, 2.
Hello, Graham.
Gosh, it's been a while. I am so looking forward to hearing what's going on in your life. Of course, I've got about 3.5 hours of stuff, but
I'm sure.
I need you to go first.
So welcome back, everyone, to Tea at 3 Looking for Good. I am Schmidt. Graham Kerr is also on your screen, and I'm going to stop pointing in directions because I'm always wrong.
I'm this side.
Yeah. Okay, this is what I love so much about this program, and the fact that we've focused on this looking for good motto is that yesterday I was extremely grumpy and definitely didn't want to do this, but I didn't want to push it back again because I knew that it's a good thing. And then this morning I was like, okay, let me actually compile what I'm going to say. And as I'm writing down, I just remembered how wonderful of a practice it is to be intentionally looking for the good things in your life rather than just focusing on whatever thoughts are filling your brain, just actually being intentional about the good things. And it put me in a way better mood just to have that reason to be intentional about seeking the good things in my life, because there are a lot of things that are good and to be thankful for, and I don't always think about them.
That is such a cool thing, isn't that true? Sometimes when I'm asked to give a public speech, when it dumps, and I realize in that moment when I'm trying to decide whether to do it or not, that it's always beneficial, because I have to get down and start working out how I can do something that may help somebody. And the moment I begin to start to ponder that, I get all kinds of ideas. I mean, far too many for anybody's good, but I just love to sit down then, and I have a purpose out front and a certain date and time to which to deliver that. And I'm always good with deadlines, but I'm horrid when people say, just whenever you're ready. You like that too?
Mm-hmm.
You need a deadline. Okay, so what's been going on as you jotted down, as we're looking for good, which is where I've been focused as well. So, and that's entirely what I have on my mind. So what do you see that is good at this time in your life?
So this will be a fun example of our age differences in perspectives. But I used to be a part of a gym that had a lot of group exercise classes that I really enjoyed. And that was a lot of where I found my fitness. And in high school and college, and even after that, I was involved in intramural sports. And exercise to me has always been easier when there's some sort of goal or activity or group happening. And in the last year and a bit, that has been much harder to do. And I've talked before about how I'm not strictly a self-motivated person. So any sort of solely me-based exercise is very difficult for me. But I feel a lot better when I exercise. So I knew that I needed to find some way of doing that. And it's been hard for me to find. There have been times where I've been able to be outside and exercising with friends, but then it was winter and that was even harder. But recently, my brother sent me his old VR set, and there's a VR game that's music based, with swords where you have to slash the notes that come at you in a certain direction at a certain speed.
Okay.
And so you're standing up there with goggles on, going this, crazy, to the beat. And I just realized, I was I finally found something that's really enjoyable and fun to motivate me to do that exercise, as simple as it is to just wave your arms around. It seemed like a fun thing to share with you.
Yes, that is. So in other words, you found a virtual way of doing exercise.
Right. just not very good when it's just a YouTube video, like exercise video. I'm just not motivated to follow it, and I can't afford to be a part of the like class video things where they like actually can see you, and so it's just, you know.
Yeah. I just found a new thing yesterday, and so I'm not sure whether I should be so triumphant about it, since I've only had one experience. But let me at least drop it on you. It's called Lectio 365. So it's in the App Store, and that's where I picked it up and did it. If you can tolerate my accent, which is vaguely British, this is all British, male and female, and I guess it's recorded in England as a result of it. But what they just do, for 365 days, they take a reading and they sort of turn it into a prayer thing, and it is according to that particular day. So everybody is on that day. So yesterday was Maundy Thursday, for example. So they talked about what that means, and they have a prayer with regard to it. And they put some music into it as well, and they give you times of silence, and they give it to you in text as well as audio. And I found it so compelling. Perhaps it's just the accent. Have is the very last thing I do before I go to bed after West Wing. You know, I'm now watching West Wing for the third time. There's no end to my. Like you, I watched The Battle of Britain as a movie. I think I watched that 11 times, which is shocking. And to confess that to you, just have fun. But if you last long enough, you tend to go back to some things that you really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So you and I have been looking for good, not the common good, but good. And I got to start to fuss over the word common good and what that might mean for me and for mankind. For example, by the way, that's called aesthetic distance, where I lean forward and it makes a difference because it says he's making a point. So
it worked.
It works, doesn't it? Anyway, traffic signals usually are put in a place where there've been some accidents. Even though they had stop signs all the way around, people somehow made mistakes and hit each other. So therefore, it is for the common good that you put traffic signals up. And then, so that people realize that there's somebody watching them, above each of those traffic signals, you have a little camera. And the little camera is focusing in such a way so that if you go over the intersection when you shouldn't be, your face and your car number is on screen. And you don't have to look for the traffic cop who's coming from the other way. You are captured 24/7, encroaching in one's day-to-day affairs, ready to capture you and condemn you and put the evidence out in front so that nobody can argue it and fine you because you broke the law. You went over that line. So I'm looking at the common good, and I'm saying to myself, there's two kinds of common good going on there. Number one is there is a red light which tells me to stop. There is a green light which tells me I can go. And there is an amber light which lets, whoa, careful. You know, if you're right on the line, you can go over it, but only then. Now, here's my attitude as I approach the intersection. It's green. So what is my attitude as I approach? Is it foot on the floor? I'm going to get across whilst I can. I don't want to get held up by a red light, you know, have to sit there for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever else it may be in that intersection. I put my foot on the gas And if I happen to go over in the amber, well, that's a, well, officer, I was already over the line when it turned amber. Right? Or do I, seeing that it's been green for a while as far as I can see as I'm driving up to it, I look in my rear vision mirror to see if there's anybody right behind me, and I begin to slow down just in case it turns amber. That's an attitude. There's two completely different attitudes. It's me, what I want out of life, and I want to get on with it, and I do not want to get held up. And the other one, which says, if it does go amber, I want to be sure that nobody tailgates me, and that I'm not going to cause a problem with somebody else because I don't want it. Now, 50% of all serious and fatal accidents in the United States on our roads happen at intersections. 50% of accidents causing injuries. And when you see that, and they're there for the common good. So why are we having these accidents at intersections? It is because our attitude is foot to the floor. If it's green, I need to get through before I'm held up. So let's put that now to work with regard to the vaccines. All right? So is my attitude for the common good to have a vaccine? Now, I need to ask you that question because you are 27 and I am 87. We understand that. And my attitude towards approaching that intersection is quite likely to be different from yours because you are much less likely to be seriously affected by catching COVID-19, much less. You're a healthy young woman, and the chances of you getting seriously, hospitalized and even dying is really, really profoundly small. 80% of the deaths from COVID-19 have been people over 65. So you've got a long way to go. So what do you feel about that? You see the vaccine saying, for example, I'm going to ask you directly, are you going to be vaccinated?
Yeah. So I understand that there is an attitude out there somewhere where I'm sure there are a lot of younger people that don't think about it as much. For me, I never really once thought about it, particularly about myself. I mostly thought about the idea of getting it as like, if I could spread it to other people, and how I would never forgive myself for doing something like that, like giving anyone of any age the potential risk of like spreading it to someone else. That was always my thought in like being good about wearing masks and staying isolated and all that kind of stuff. I did actually already get my first shot a week and a half ago. Being a 27-year-old freelancer, I didn't think that it was going to come until like July or something. But the school that my husband goes to and works at, because he's a teacher, he was an educator, so he qualified. And then they opened it up to students, family. And so I was able to get it too. I never once considered not getting it. I know that it's not as big of a deal for me, but I think that there's always been this, like, you don't really know how it's going to affect you. And so there was still that worry, like, even of someone of my age could get very sick. There's always that chance. And I think that in my brain, often those tiny chances always feel bigger than what they actually are. Even if I am able to push past them and like tuck them away more so than someone of your age might be able to do. But yeah, no, I mean, it's always been more so about like we live in a community, we have this shared world, and it just never occurred to me to not do whatever I could to help in that way, even if it made me sick for a day or made me have to deal with a needle, which I hate.
So, if I may, if you're approaching an intersection, the intersection is vaccine, but now let's go back to the traffic signals again. If it seems like, hey, it's all getting really better, it's all looking good, it's all looking go, we can get back to where we were again. If we all get vaccinated, or if most of us get, so we get a herd immunity. So you're approaching that and it's green. It seems to me that you're approaching that cautiously. You are actually slowing down and checking your rear vision mirror. You don't want to harm anybody around you. That's your motivation. Now, I'm going to take the position of calling that compassion. I think that is you exercising compassion. And it could also be, if you look at the data on this and you analyze the whole process, it can also be logical to be able to do that. When we have 70 or 80% of us, are covered, then that should be the end of it. It should stop virtually. It's still going to be around, I think, and we may have to have a booster every now and again. But I think we'll have put that behind us. So that is the common good, which is logic. And it is the good that you do by slowing down and checking around you so that you do no harm, which is personal. And therefore, compassionate, it isn't necessarily logic. And this is what I've been trying to work out for myself. What is logical and what is love? Mm. And logic and love does not have to fit completely. They can sometimes overlap, but they're not the same. So people have a tendency to behave themselves for the common good, not because they love one another and are compassionately trying to do less harm, but because they know that they're on camera. So for me, at the present moment, we live in a time of the most amazing freedom. We're surrounded by data that tells us what's logical and what we should do. But within us, we can have a love for one another, and we do it because we're going to slow down when it's green, because we're not going to put our foot on the gas and go and do our individual thing because I want to do it.
Yeah, I think
too much to think about. Yeah,
it's a lot. I feel like there's always this like constant, what has felt like has been partitioned into two viewpoints, which I feel like can be meshed together as with most things. But anyway, there's one idea of like, do we trust in humanity that people are inherently good, or do we not believe that people are inherently good, and do we need to enforce a good of some sort upon them? Yeah. And that's, I mean, a constant struggle between those two, because there are plenty of examples of humanity doing just fine and caring for the people around them, and there are fewer examples of people doing not that, but they're like to a larger scale, even though it is a minority. And yeah, that can be scary to put your trust in the people around you for those things.
Yes.
It's interesting to me in that we trust people around us all the time, but when it comes like in our face to like make a decision on whether or not to trust people, we're more confused, because like we trust in traffic laws and we trust that people are able to drive a car that they're driving around you, and that's like, it amazes me sometimes. It's like a crazy dangerous thing to do, but we all do it all the time every day. we walk across a crosswalk trusting that people will stop or swerve around us if they can't stop or something like that. We trust that in our economy to continue to function and all these things that we constantly put our faith in humanity. But when it's like brought into question, like, should we do that? We don't always know the answer.
Yeah.
But I think I've always been on the firm believer of like humanity is inherently good and will do things for the benefit of community, but I know that that's not always the case. So it's kind of
it isn't.
sometimes.
But if you and I are looking for good, we are looking with a degree of trust in each other. When I approach the traffic signals, I'm going to trust that people are going to stop so that I can drive over and not just keep going and smack me in the side. And I inherently trust that. I know that at certain intersections where there is a camera, that if I don't do that properly, I'm going to get fined, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there may even be vehicular homicide involved in that if I hit somebody else. So I know there is a legal consequence at a traffic sign. But at an ordinary section of two roads going ahead without the traffic signs, it's much more in my hands to be the one who's being ultra safe. For me, it is do less harm by whatever means you can live life. This is not an argument which is easy. And all
and I know that there are pieces even within myself, even when I say that I believe that people are good, I know there are other parts of me that believe in like more environmental laws, which are like the opposite of that. That's believing that people can't follow the common good. Like I understand that there's a huge conflict in my own beliefs here, but it's just always complicated.
Do you know, it's complicated until we get down to just one phrase, which I was taught some time ago, and that I truly believe in with all my heart. If a decision does not start with compassion, then it is likely to be a dead work. In other words, I should be more concerned about how my life affects other people in a potentially negative way. That I should be so concerned about that I'm feeling a compassion. I don't want them to suffer. Therefore, I am going to choose to lay my life down to some extent in order to make it possible for another. For example, I have a next door neighbor here who I dearly love. She's a few years older than I am. And her family have asked her not to take the vaccine. And she's a dear lady who goes along with the honesty and love and tender care that her family give her. And so that's her decision, not to take the vaccine. Now, my decision living next to her is to take particular care about where I go and what's going on around me, so that when I'm close to her, the potential for me infecting her, passing it on through just being completely free to go and do what I like, I can't. I am not making that choice any longer to go do what I want to do. I'm not putting my foot on the accelerator to go over when it's green. I'm just not going to do that. It is amber because she has not been vaccinated. That's my life. It is constantly on amber. It doesn't mean that I stop, but it means I slow down and I'm very careful about how I live my life. And why shouldn't I be? Why shouldn't I? Why do I have to have COVID-19 to teach me that? Shouldn't that be the way that one would live one's life anyway? So that's what I'm thinking about and have been chewing on for 3 or 4 weeks. Bless your heart.
Yeah, I feel like that's been something that's been fairly strong in my life, to a point there where it's like I don't think about myself enough sometimes, and that I like not very good at taking care of myself at times, because I'm have been constantly focused about others around me and not myself, even though I know, or at least something that I have been struggling with is that knowing that like when I am in good health, that is also good for the people around me. You know, like
Yes.
that's a part
Yes.
of it.
Yeah. And don't you like to be thinking that you're living in a community like that, a community that cares about you and you care about them? That's a wonderful life community to live in. Now, fast forward, and now you pass laws which make sure that your behavior cannot go across that line without serious consequences to you, and you have removed the motive for compassion. I just want to be able to decide to do things because I love other people and I don't want to see them suffer, which I think is your feeling exactly. And I have a great deal of hope for the future because you're alive and well and feeling that way. So let's ponder this and get back to each other again and see what we think.
Yeah, there's plenty a lot to think about. I will say my last dose of good in this, from what I've been thinking about lately, is that it is currently 65 degrees out and sunny. It will be all week. It's spring. I'm gonna be able to visit my family soon after I get my second dose. Things are in our immediate future finally coming to a place that's hard to believe was ever going to come, in that we're slowly being able to get back out in the world. There is good. There is good in the world. There's good in people. There's good in our communities. And the fact that we can sit here and deliberately find those things and analyze them is great. And it makes it, like we've said before, it makes it even more and more exponential when we share good with each other, not only having the good that we found in our lives, but also bringing joy to someone else by sharing our own good. It's
Amen.
Great. It's an amazing experience, and I really appreciate sharing it with you.
Lovely. Me too. It's one of the best moments of my life, so I want you to know that. Thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone, for coming along on this Looking for Good journey. This has been Tea at 3, Looking for Good. I am Faye Schmidt. Graham Kerr is also here somewhere. And we will see you next time. Bye.
God bless.
Also, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you have not already, so that you know when our next video is coming out, and like this video if you enjoyed watching. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.